Hey guys, my name is Chris Martin. This is the Crane Rental Podcast, episode 5. We have Rob Pulliam to my left. Works with us in the dispatch department, but has been a crane operator for, how many years now, Rob?
I was 28 when I came into, it was 28 years when I came in the office. Full-time crane operator for 28 years.
Wow. So 28 years of experience running the crane, operating the sticks.
Right.
Working on projects throughout the Southwest, basically.
Correct.
Right, New Mexico, Texas, everywhere?
Yeah, mostly, earlier years, mostly New Mexico. Later years, all over the Southwest.
So tell us maybe how you got started. Where did this all come from? How did you become a crane operator?
Well, it started, my dad was a crane operator. He started back in 1962 with crane service. And I basically grew up around the cranes, back in the early days. When I was a youngster, Dad would take me to job sites with him and put me behind the seat of the crane. And,
right.
I'd sit there and watch him, what he was doing. And,
when you say youngster, define, what is your youngster? If you could guess.
8, 9 years old.
Okay, so way young.
Yeah.
You're talking little tyke, right?
Yeah, little tyke. And so he'd take me to the jobs where he could,
Right.
If he knew the customer really well or that sort of thing, that he wouldn't get in trouble, or the crane service wouldn't get in trouble for it.
Right.
And back then it was a lot more lenient than it is today, And so I'd sit there and watch what he's doing, and there was actually a few times toward the end of the day, he'd put me in the seat and let me swing the crane around, run the hoist line up and down, kind of play with the crane a little bit, So
right.
It piqued my interest at a very young age.
Well, everybody at a young age, as a kid, as a boy, perhaps, always loves cool, big, semis and tractors and cars and cranes and,
like
dozers.
Big boy toys.
Yeah. So basically, you're just boys with toys, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So he was letting you operate under controlled environments, of course.
Right.
The crane, and getting a love and passion for it. So this is 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's way young.
And
Well, I mean, not in a bad way, but that's pretty crazy. You were basically started, the very young age there.
Yeah. Actually, and I had pictures at the house where, Mom had taken pictures of us where, I was probably 4 or 5 years old. He'd set me up on the crane, take my picture, that sort of thing.
That's pretty cool. You still have all those?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's way cool.
But, and then, I kind of followed along with it, growing up, and always enjoyed being around them. Anytime Dad would say, "Hey, you want to go with me?" Oh, heck yeah! I'd give up whatever I had to do on Saturday to go with him, or in the summertime when he was out of school.
Right. You just go ride with him all day.
Yeah. It was really cool. And then, so then, I got older and I graduated high school, and that's when it all started. Went and hit Emmett Storks up for a job. And
now, Emmett Storks, we know him. He's been with in the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And that's John Stork's dad.
No, it's his uncle.
John Stork's uncle. Okay.
Yeah. He was one of the original owners of crane service.
Right, and he's now since retired. But John's in the union, or was Emmett in the union doing the union hall stuff?
No. Emmett is actually, he's deceased now.
Okay.
Tom Storks.
Oh, Tom Storks, yeah.
Yeah, who is John's father.
And brother
retired.
of Emmett?
Yeah, he's Emmett's brother.
Okay. Trying to get the Stork family tree figured out here.
Let's see. No, actually, Tom Storks would be Emmett's nephew.
Oh, okay.
It's his nephew.
Okay.
And
anywho,
yeah, he came into the picture with Emmett. Moved here from, I believe it was Iowa, and
so you hit up Emmett Storks at the time, one of the owners of Crane Service. or the owner of Crane Service.
Right.
And said, hey, I want to get a job. My father, Leroy, is currently working with Crane Service, right?
Oh, yeah. You know, and I knew Emmett since I was a little kid, you know.
Right.
And he always used to kid me, well, when you get old enough to drive, well, come ask me for a job, you know.
And here you are, ready to go, right? After high school?
Yeah. So, you know, after high school, I went and hit him up for a job. And for the first little while, they had me, you know, cleaning the yard and doing stuff around the yard.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, occasionally going out with the guys, put a crane together or do stuff, you know. But then actually one day they had a job over in through New Mexico where they didn't have enough truck drivers to get all the counterweights and stuff out there for the equipment.
So this is your time to shine right here, right?
Yep. And so
all hands on deck?
Yeah, that's what it was. And you know, and I'd been driving the trucks around the yard and a little bit out on the road, not much, but walked in and the dispatcher, Mr. Deaton, he told me, he says, hey, I need to get that Kenworth taken out to a job site. He says, jump in it and head it through. I said, you know, Mr. Deaton, I've driven it a little bit, but I said, I've never had it out on the road with a load on it. And he says, you'll do fine. And so for the first 15 miles or so, I was grinding gears like crazy and had to stop and restart a couple of times.
Right.
And finally got going. I got the truck out there. Of course, I was probably an hour late getting there from what they wanted, but you know, I did get it there. And so came back off of that job, and they told me, well, now you need to go get, back then it was called your chauffeur's license.
Right. Which turned into a CDL Class A.
Right. So he said, you need to go get your chauffeur's license.
I wonder why they called it a chauffeur's license.
I think it had to do with, you know, more along the lines of bus drivers at that time.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Gotcha.
And, you know, they just kept expanding out into
more regulatory
truck drivers. And, you know how the government works. So.
Right.
Get their dollars. So.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I went down, got the chauffeur's license, and from then on, it was no more work in the yard. We was out following cranes around, putting them together. And, for a year or so, I was an oiler on a...
Do you remember the crane?
Yeah, the first crane I actually oiled on was a 50-ton truck mount link belt. HTC 50.
HTC 50?
Yeah. And back then, the way the union broke up the classifications if you needed an oiler or not.
Right.
So if the crane had two cabs on it, you had to have an oiler on it.
Two cabs meaning a lower driving and an upper?
Right.
So your stand-up neck breaker boom trucks wouldn't be considered?
No.
So anything with a swing cab, is that?
No, basically I had to have the lower, like your RTs didn't need oilers on them.
Right, obviously. Carrier decks, right?
Yeah, you had to have two cabs, an upper and a lower, and then that qualified as having to have an oiler on.
Would a 40-ton now that's a swing cab that has two cabs be considered oiler?
Well, not nowadays.
Well, I mean, but at the
back
time?
then, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's pretty interesting how times have shifted.
And so that was the first crane I oiled on. I lasted on it for probably about 6 months. And then that's where Harlan Williams, he was one of the owners of the company also.
Okay.
He had stock in the company. He's like, you don't need to be oiling on them squirt booms. Let's get you on a real crane. So I went from a 50-ton truck mount crane oiler to being on a 100-ton conventional.
Wow, so that's a big step because you're going from, at the time, hydraulic to friction, right?
Right.
So that's a different learning curve. So
going from driving an 8-wide carrier to a 11-foot wide carrier going down the road, you know.
Yeah, you're taking up more space. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess they saw more ability in me than I really realized I had, you know. And
Well, that's a good way. That's a good way to advance people, you know.
Oh yeah.
And you have to see that now in the dispatch position you're in of, okay, who can really step up here when we need things moved or cranes or equipment, you know.
And so I went on that 100-ton for a while, and actually at that time that was the largest crane that we had in our rental fleet.
What was it? 100-ton link belt, HC. 218? No, that's a 72. 248?
238? 238A, I believe it was.
Okay.
I don't know. They changed their number around. I can't keep up with all that. I do good to keep up with the ones I have.
Right.
Yeah, I weld on that crane, and I mean that crane whizzed all over the place in it. Well, I take back what I said earlier about that being the largest crane. Actually, we had a 238. I don't remember the numbers on it, but it was actually 115 ton. That was the largest one we had in our fleet.
Okay. And this was a link belt.
Yeah, that was also a link belt. But it was on a long-term job, so none of us ever seen it until it came off that long-term job. And when it came off that job, then I bumped up on it. Now I'm driving a 12-wide carrier, and a little bit larger machine, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, top speed on that dang thing was like 37 miles an hour. And, it was a beast, though, man. It was a good crane. And the normal responsibilities, keeping it clean, lubed,
right, oiled up,
everything, And then, of course, after I got on the conventionals, I started getting a lot more seat time too. The operators I was with on the hydro cranes, they pretty much lever hogs. They didn't want to let you run them. They wanted to do it.
Oh, so there's well, they've been in the. Is it a seniority deal or that was their crane and?
Yeah, it's more than it's my crane. I'm going to run it.
Right.
Once I got with Harlan and some of the other conventional operators, they're like, it's your turn to start running it, And
that must have been a pretty interesting experience with the friction crane. And maybe you can describe what a friction crane is just in a few sentences or a minute or so.
Friction crane, you have clutches, gear driven. You got a torque converter,
much like a manual car, right?
Yeah, it's like going from automatic transmission to a stick shift,
Right. Then you had free fall.
You had free fall. I mean, it's a totally different machine from a hydro.
So you had brakes on the actual hoist lines, right?
Foot brakes on your hoist line.
Which, I guess you kind of have a swing brake, but do you have a brake?
No, you don't really have a swing brake to hold you in position. I mean, if you swing around and stop, and you're going to be sitting there while you'd reach up and set your swing brake instead of pushing on a foot brake.
Okay. So there's a little different there.
Place, yeah. And it's a lot nicer machine to run, actually, I think. But
those friction cranes?
Yeah, it's a lot more work.
Well, yeah, you have to have just in a lattice boom truck crane altogether, you have people pinning booms together, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Whereas in a hydro, you can just kind of squirt the boom out, as you'd call it, or telescope out your boom sections and be ready to go.
Back then we didn't have these large hydros like we have now, where you can go do 4 or 5 jobs in one day.
Right.
I remember one particular day, there's a bunch of us who all got together and took that 100-ton link belt conventional and done 4 different boom changes in one day.
Oh wow!
Going around town setting air conditioners. And you talk about some tired puppies at the end of the day, man.
Yeah.
Beat. And nowadays they go out there and they push a couple of buttons and pull a lever and run out 200 foot of boom, where we were out there hammering pins and dragging pennant lines and all that good stuff.
Right. That's pretty impressive. You got 4 in a day.
Yeah.
That's pretty difficult.
Yeah, it wasn't a max boom change, but
sure.
Still, it was. If I remember right, we were putting about 180 or 200 foot of main boom in it each time.
Well, then you got disassemble, put it on the truck,
Yep.
right? Reassemble when you get there. Get out the
Counterweights off
dolly.
onto the trailers, all that good stuff,
Yeah, now you can just take a link belt ATC 3275 or link belt HTC 86100
Yeah.
or Terex AC 100-4L, and it's a 120-ton all-terrain and get a job done and move around the city doing ACs.
Oh, yeah.
Or even the boom trucks.
Yeah. And even back then, we didn't even have boom trucks. We had RTs, truck mount,
Oh, wow.
hydraulics, and then our conventional fleet. And then after that, I got comfortable with running the cranes. And first job I ever done by myself, I went back down the first actual crane job I done was on a little 15-ton Bantam.
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 Oh, Bantam.
It was a 15-ton RT. Ran down the yard, probably about 5 miles from the yard in that machine. Had 60 foot of telescope and boom and I believe it was a 28-foot jib.
Oh, wow. So you had to swing the jib yourself, of course.
So I had to put the jib out. Man, I thought that was something, and reach up on this church and change out a couple of church steeples. And
what was going through your mind then? That's the first job by yourself. You're out.
You're like,
Yeah.
Hope I remember all this stuff, And
Right.
It went well, about noon I made it back to the yard, and it was a good experience. So, but that started my actual lever pulling career after about 2 years of oiling, and then.
So you're what, 21, 20, 18 around this time, 18, 19, somewhere there?
The first job I done, I was probably about 20 years old.
Okay.
Started running out in the field by myself. And, there's been good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, I mean, that's projects in the crane game. You get the perfect projects where, everything seems to go perfectly right.
Yeah.
And then you get some projects where, it's quite the opposite, and you're doing some, challenging work of trying to figure out where to set and all this kind of other nonsense, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Never a dull moment.
Yeah, you got to get our technicians out there or call somebody else and get some other ideas.
Yep. Let's see, after we basically, I started off on that 15-ton. I went to a 22-ton RT, a 40-ton RT.
So your base is tearing through the RTs, one RT at a time.
Oh, yeah.
Gaining confidence in yourself, and dispatch is gaining confidence in you, right?
Then I'll never forget our first new truck mount hydraulic crane came in. It was a 55-ton.
Grove?
No, it was a link belt, HTC 1055.
Okay. That model number sounds strangely familiar.
Yeah, unit number 5414. We sold it a few years ago.
Oh, a few years ago to this date?
Yeah.
Because we had that in our fleet recently, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that was the one you started on?
That was my first truck mount hydraulic crane.
Wow.
Of my own.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And it was brand new. They brought it in on I'll never forget, they brought this thing in on a double drop stretch trailer.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't an RGN.
Oh, was it?
No. It was just a double drop stretch trailer. We actually had to...
Was he even axled out right?
No. He brought that thing into the yard, and we're like, well, we don't really want to pick it up using another crane.
Right.
We probably could have, but,
Well, let's maybe explain what the process is. If you had an RGN removable gooseneck, he could take the trailer off, take the gooseneck off. Well, you unpin the gooseneck at the trailer. He pulls forward.
Right.
Trailer drops.
Drive the crane off.
And you drive off, right? Now he didn't have an RGN.
No. So
now you're on a double drop so that you're set inside this trailer, right?
Inside the well. Yeah.
So you guys had to hoist it off with another crane?
No, we didn't do that. Actually, we didn't have a crane in the yard to do it with, or we probably would have. So what we did is, as you know, we even back then we were in the jack and roll business. So we got out there, ran the outriggers out on the crane.
Right.
Proceeded to start jacking the crane up, putting cribbing underneath.
Oh, to get above that wheel well?
Right.
On the trailer? And then he'd have him just pull forward slowly?
Yep, have him pull up out from under the crane.
That's pretty...
Kind of like we do the 2250.
Right, the car bodies?
Yeah.
Or no, not the car... Yeah,
the house.
The house, yeah. Yeah, the house has... Or even the Link Belt TCC 1100, your crawlers, right? All have outriggers that punch down.
Right.
And then you can raise up, pull the trailer out, and you're good to go.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's pretty interesting.
So that's basically that. Well, that's the way we unloaded that crane.
How did they get it on there, I wonder?
We asked the guy, and he said when they picked it up at a factory, it was already on the trailer, and he backed under it and left.
Yeah, so your typical truck driver.
Yeah. So
we have some sort of issue here. I don't know what it is, Rob. But we're gonna keep talking while I keep pushing buttons. So keep going, Rob.
Okay, so anyway, we get this thing unloaded and get it over, get it PDI'd and all checked out, ready to go. And I'm kind of watering at the mouth. Nobody's saying who's going to start running this crane.
Right.
I'm kind of watering at the mouth, chomping at the bit, and it sat in the yard for a day or two, and then Mr. Deaton come out and he says, got a job for that crane, you up for it? And I'm like, yes sir, let's go.
Let's roll.
And so I ran that thing for probably 3 years.
Nice.
Just all over the place. And
I think we're getting too hot on this GoPro, Rob. Let me see if I can put some paper on. Yeah, we can still keep talking the story here, and I'll figure out our video problems.
So I ran that one 3 or 4 years, and then actually Emmett had sold the company and put somebody else in charge. Me and that somebody else didn't get along too well, so kind of had a little parting of the waves. So I went to work for Kiewit.
Ah, okay.
We all know they're one of the major road construction outfits in the United States. Went to work for them, and I worked for them for about 6 years. And started off running a 40-ton RT with them.
Ah, okay.
Pouring concrete, doing whatever they needed done on their bridging and stuff. And pretty much didn't turn anything down that they had to do, regardless if it was running a crane or dirt equipment or
whatever it may
whatever they needed to do. We jumped in there and done it. Worked for them for about 6 years. Actually, Dad came over and worked for them about 6 months after I started with them. He came over and started with them. Ran 40-ton RT, 60-ton RT. Then they got a pretty good-sized bridge project that came up, and the guy that was running their pile driving crane decided he didn't want to work there anymore, so they come up and asked me if I'd mind giving that a shot. So
now, pile driving crane, same concept.
The crane is the crane that we were using, it was a 2900 Manitowoc crawler crane, a friction rig.
Yeah.
And probably about a 1969 model. And had it set up with what they call fixed leads, which the leads is the part of the crane that hangs from the boom. You have a spotter that comes back and attaches to your turntable and holds everything all in place. And you pull run your hammer with your hoist line up to the top and pull a stick of piling in under the hammer and then proceed to beat it into the ground.
Ah, okay, that's pretty cool.
And so I started doing that. That actually turned out to be a very good job because you got to just work the hours, whatever hours you wanted, because the pile driver was always the first part of the bridge to get done.
Yeah.
And you got a whole crew of carpenters and everybody waiting on you to get done so they can come in and go to work. And so, I mean, you basically got to set the hours you wanted to work. If you wanted to work sun up to sundown, you done it. You know? And
Gotcha.
Nobody ever said a word.
Because they needed you there working and taking care of everything, right?
Oh, yeah. It was a blast. Had a good crew. Pile driving crew consists of the operator, and then you got, well, they called him a pile buck. I called him, he was a good friend of mine, so because it saved me a lot of work. But you had the pile buck, and then you had a helper for him. And I mean, you'd sit there all day long just beating either H-beam piling or pipe piling into the ground.
Yeah.
And I mean, it did get a little monotonous after a while. You know, you're just sitting there watching that piece of steel go into the ground. But you know, it was a good job. And then we done that. They had a 3900 that they had, real nice machine. That they kept it up very well, and used it for setting bridge beams, and actually had a job one time where we couldn't use the fixed leads on account of you couldn't get them in there to drive the piling. So we actually took our set of fixed leads and fabricated a lifting eye off the top of it to make what they call swinging leads. So with the swinging leads, you don't have a spotter that's attached to your turntable. It just swings below your boom like a regular load would.
Ah, okay.
So you use your hoist line to run the hammer up, and then your other hoist line would be used to pick your swinging leads up. So you've got enough boom, you reach out there over an obstacle or whatever and place your leads in place and put your piling in the leads, set your hammer down on it, and then drive your piling that way. And so we done that with the 3900 some, and then of course set bridge beams and stuff.
Right.
And one day me and Dad we were actually working at the Comanche overpass there in Albuquerque, and him and Storks came driving by and seen us sitting out there eating lunch one day, and stopped and talked to us, and he said, lost my butt on crane service when I sold it, and he said, I bought it back now, and he said, I need some operators. Are you guys interested?
This is you and your dad?
Yeah.
Leroy Pulliam?
Yes, sir. So we're at the end of that job with Kiewit, and they didn't have another bridge job lined up, so Dad went and put in his 2 weeks notice. Well, I'd already promised Kiewit I'd go on up to Raton and drive piling for him up there.
Yeah.
So I fulfilled my obligation.
You were locked down for that in Raton. Is that the overpass that goes to Colorado?
Yep. There's 2 or 3 of them up through there that we put in up there.
And we've subsequently replaced the bridge beams recently with our Grove GMK 7550. Remember that?
Yeah.
Is that the same bridge?
No, that was a different project.
Oh, okay.
A little east of Raton there.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we done that bridge up there. Or actually done 3 bridges up there when I was with Kiewit, and so I fulfilled that obligation. Came back to crane service, and lo and behold, but what's there waiting for me when I get back there? My old crane, unit number 5414.
It was still there?
Still there.
Well, I guess if we just recently sold it, it was always still going to be there, but she was right there waiting for you, right?
Yep. Got back, and that's when one of the first big expansions at Intel was getting going, and I took that unit 5414 out there, and basically sat in the parking lot for a while, waiting on somebody to come out and say, "Hey, I need a crane."
Right.
Here I am.
Yeah, you're ready, waving your hand, right?
So we done that for a little bit, and then the project really kicked off, and we put the crane to use after that. In this time frame I was sitting out there at Intel, that's when Emmett had passed away, and just before he did, though, he did manage to sell the crane to
the company?
To Dilco.
Ah, okay.
That's when Rick Siegel,
Dick Dillman,
and man, I can't think of his name right now. Lee Steinberg.
Okay, right. From Mr.
company.
Crane.
Yeah. Well, yeah, which he owns Mr. Crane now. And so they purchased the company, and Rick Siegel became our boss.
Did Rick Siegel have a crane company, or where did he come from? Because Mr. Crane, Lee Steinberg from Mr. Crane, Dick Dillman from Dilco, those make sense. I just don't know where.
I think Dick Dillman knew him.
Oh, okay.
And I honestly think he was running crane experience he had was in like the Arizona area.
Oh, okay. That's where,
I'm not real certain on that, but
anywho, he had some crane knowledge and he came into the business, right?
Very, very knowledgeable of the cranes. Very good individual. So he had purchased the company, and I'm still sitting out there at Intel doing odds and ends,
Right.
And in the meantime, after they purchased the company, they realized, hey, we need to get some more cranes in here. So they went out and bought a 90-ton Grove truck mount, a TMS 90, and brought it to town. And of course, Bob Strohacker, our Sweetwater manager, was running crane back then.
Right.
And here in Albuquerque.
Yeah, he's actually born in El Paso, but his family's mostly here.
Right. And so he was running crane in Albuquerque at that time. So anyway, they buy this new 90-ton. Rick tells me, "Oh yeah, Rob, that's your new crane.
Right.
Beautiful crane. It wasn't brand new or nothing, but it was really nice shape, good crane." So here I am. I'm still out at Intel when the crane gets here.
Oh, so you know what happens there, right?
So one day after work, they tell me the crane's there, so I, go over to check it out, and there's Mr. Strohacker sitting in the seat. And so I'm still out at Intel running the 55-ton. And they got a couple of jobs for that 90, and Bob took it. And actually, I'll never forget, we got one job. Turned out it was a 2-crane pick. So they pulled the 55 didn't have nothing at Intel that day, so I pulled out. We ran up to Santa Fe and set some big propane storage tanks.
Oh, okay.
The two of us, him on my 90-ton and me on that 55.
You and Bob Strohacker?
Yeah.
Tag teamed up in Santa Fe?
Yeah, so we set these tanks, get back to town, and Rick comes out and he tells me, no, he says, we'll find somebody else to run that 55. He says, you go ahead and take your 90.
Oh, so that still was yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then at that time, that's when Mr. Mike Cones came into the picture. They hired Mike.
Now, Mike's our territory salesman for the Albuquerque area, but he started off as a crane operator, right?
Correct. And so they hired him and put him on the 55-ton.
Ah, okay.
So
5414. We'll have to ask him about that.
So they put him on that and put me on the 90. Strohacker was running a 238 link belt. He had a panel job come up, and so they put him on the 238. Life was good. So anyway, after that, I ran that 90-ton all over the country: Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado. I mean, just any and everywhere they got a job.
Just tore it up. Just ran the roads with that thing and built projects all over the Southwest.
Right. And at that time, a 90-ton hydro, that was a big, pretty good sized hydro.
Yeah. What kind of year? What year do you think this is, if you can estimate?
the late 80s.
Okay.
No, late 80s.
Late 80s?
Yeah. Or real early 90s, late 80s.
Somewhere in there?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, these large hydraulic cranes just started recently, becoming enormous.
Yeah. And, for our neck of the woods, too,
Right. This is
we're
Albuquerque. This isn't Houston or something, or the Port of LA or something like that.
Back then,
Long Beach.
we'd see these guys in Houston with these big 150 tonners and
Right.
that kind of stuff. We're like, oh, wow,
Right.
Here I get a 90. Well, that's almost 150 tons.
Yeah, we're getting closer, right?
So
We're moving in the right direction, at least.
Yeah.
From 50 to 90.
So, yeah, I ran the wheels off that crane, and then Rick, I can't remember the exact year, had to be mid to late 90s.
Yeah, okay.
He decides to buy a 200-ton LeBaire hydraulic crane.
Now, this is, the LTM 1160?
1160.
This is,
Can't find the button.
This is the LeBaire LTM 1160, which we just recently sold.
Right.
So this was also a crane that we've, that's a beautiful crane.
Yeah, it was a real nice crane. It's like going from a Volkswagen to a Cadillac, to be honest with you.
Smooth.
And,
Is that where you got the nickname Smooth Operator?
Yeah. And so, then, he got that crane, and I'm like, holy smokes, I rolled in the yard with that 90 and pulled up next to it, and I'm like, that's a big machine.
Yeah.
And
200 ton to 90, man, now you're really rolling.
yeah. So, went on that crane, had some really good experiences. I can't ever remember any bad experiences I had when I got on that crane. It
Pretty
was
much
all
good
really
times.
Good, yeah. Had good people to work with, and that's another machine, man. It hit the ground, and they PDI'd it and threw me together a dolly to pull behind it, and we were on the way,
Yeah, then you were moving.
That thing, I ran it all over the country too.
What was the farthest you went with it? Or do you have any stories of, or your favorite project with the crane or anything like that?
Yeah, the first project I had, everybody was all in a big hurry to get the first job for it. They didn't even have the dolly built while they're doing the PDI. We got 5 or 6 guys, contract welders coming in the whole 9 yards, building
Right.
the dolly for it.
Right.
And
This is before we had our, Nelson and
right,
and Brandon working in the welding
yeah, our
department in
fab
Ken Butts.
shop, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're busy building this dolly while we're doing the PDI. Bob Waranka, they were building the Isleta Casino there south of the yard there in Albuquerque.
Right.
Gets this job for year out mechanical, setting these air conditioner units up on the roof.
Ah, okay.
And never had this crane out of the yard,
Right.
And
And that can be sometimes interesting when you have a new crane that's recently PDI'd, because there can be issues, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we get out on the job site, and of course they build this casino on the side of a sand hill.
So our ground isn't the best, right?
Yeah,
You're basically
yeah,
in a what do they call that? Quicksand?
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't even know all the quirks of the crane yet, and we go out there to do this job, and they were 8,000 pound air conditioners, had to put out about 160 foot of boom.
Yeah.
And set these air conditioners. Well, as far as setting the air conditioners, the crane done a great job, but moving around on the job site, got in there, got set up in the first location. We had to set up 3 different times on this job, and set up on the first location, got it set, moved down to the next location, got that one set.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, this guy comes in with a loader. I don't know. I was busy setting air conditioners. I don't know what he's using, a backhoe or something.
Right.
And proceeds to tear the road up.
Hey, but this is an all-terrain crane, man.
Yeah, exactly.
You can go through anything.
So we get the crane tore down, ready to move to the third location, and I roll out on, where I was parked at was fine, but as soon as I got off of that, man, that thing just fell out of sight. It got stuck.
Now you're into some sketchy sand or whatever this is.
Yeah, he had about 2 inches of hardback on top of that sand that he tore off and exposed all this sugar sand underneath it.
Right.
And so here we are out there with the crane buried up.
Yeah, now you're royally screwed, right?
And the guy, the factory rep that come and showed me how to do all this stuff, sure, he showed me, but new machine, twice as technical,
right.
Probably 5 times more technical than that 90-ton Grove was.
Yeah.
Here we are, or I am, trying to figure out how to get all these axles locked into 4-wheel drive or all-wheel drive.
How many axles do you have? 5?
5 axles, and actually you had four axles that would drive, and then your center axle was basically a tag axle.
Oh, okay. So four driving axles, 1 in the middle. Okay.
So I'm in there pushing all these buttons and stuff, and for some reason the guys that are building the dolly wanted to leave the operator's manual there so that it had some dimensions in it that they needed.
At the office, yeah.
So I'm like, I got this, go ahead, And so I'm without the book.
This is before the internet.
Yeah. So, I'm pushing all these buttons and
this is even before cell phones, isn't it?
No, I had a cell phone, so that's what I did. The factory rep had left me his card, so I dial him up. So, you got to push this button, this button, this button. You'll be good to go.
Okay.
So I do that.
Sounds easy enough, right?
Yeah. So I do that, and that thing drives right up out of there.
Oh, so you were good to go after that.
Yeah.
Just wham and bam.
Yeah, it's just a learning curve,
Right.
Yeah. So I ran that crane. Then Rick, he decided he wanted to get a little bit larger hydraulic crane. So
this is when the 240.
Yeah.
This is our LTM. I don't remember the model number of the 240.
12. It's a 1200 / something. I don't remember.
I can't remember that one. But it was a LeBaire LTM.
It was a 1200 / 2. I don't remember right off.
Yeah, some sort of. But it was a 240-ton class, U.S. ton class, all-terrain crane.
Right. Really nice crane.
Beautiful. We just recently sold that one, I think maybe 2 years ago.
Right.
Or something of that nature. Beautiful crane, really strong too.
Yeah. Had a really good chart on it. So we get that machine, I take it over, and actually...
So there's no new machine you haven't operated. You're basically new machine, Rob goes on it?
The 1160 wasn't brand new.
Oh, that's right. It was brand new to crane service, though, right?
It was a couple of years old. Okay, now I get this 240, this 1200, and first crane I ever ran that had air conditioning after all these years.
So you're moving on up, huh?
Yeah. So I'm just happy as can be.
This is what would you say? April through August. We're getting into warmer months. We're in the Southwest. In July, you're talking 100+ degrees.
Yeah.
Maybe even more in the cab with stagnant air.
Oh yeah, a lot more in the cab with stagnant air.
So getting AC is a big deal.
So anyway, I get this new crane, got air conditioning. I think it's a cat's meow. It was great. Ran it probably 3 years, and then that's when Rick decided to put me in the office into dispatch.
Oh, okay. By choice or?
We went through several over a course of about 8-9 months, and he just wanted somebody in there that had a little more experience that
and
actually,
knowledge of what the heck was going on.
Yeah, knew the cranes, knew
Yeah.
the logistics, how to move them.
Well, you have these cranes, and we talk about this one of our, blog articles. But moving a crane that has 16 loads, which is our 440 ton
Yeah.
Manitowoc 16,000, or a Grove GMK 7550 with 10 loads potentially,
Right.
or the 240 had what, 5 or 6?
We had 3. We
Three.
cheated a little bit. 4. Usually, it should have been 4, but usually we had 3.
So you have 3 or 4. You have to get the guys together. You have to
Right.
get the trucks and trailers together. So there's a lot of going into it, right?
Yeah. Well,
It's not just sending the crane out, right?
Yeah, and it's not just that one crane. I mean, you got you got the
You had Strohacker on the
Right.
link belt. You have Mike Combs doing his
Yeah.
deal.
I mean, there's more than just one crane that you got to worry about.
And Bob Waryanka from episode 3 is telling everybody, we got to get these cranes out, things moving.
Yeah.
You got him on your back, right?
Yeah. Got to make some money.
Right.
But, no, it's really good life. I mean,
Because you've been in dispatch since, and I see that you really enjoy it, and you're really good at what you do. You and Jeffrey Saavedra
right. Yeah.
are pretty good at getting these cranes permitted, out the door, and everybody rolling.
Yeah.
Which is not an easy feat, because you got people calling you all the time.
Yeah, I need this here, I need that there.
Customers and your guys, right?
Right now we're a little short-handed. I mean, if I had 2 or 3 truck drivers, life would be a whole lot easier.
Maybe a few more operators as well.
Yeah, I could go for a couple more operators.
Or operator riggers, right?
Yeah.
Guys who are willing to step up or know both of them.
Right. But it's a good life, being the crane operator. You just got to be willing to travel.
What do you think? We're coming to the end here, kind of, and that's a good segue of what you're talking about. What do you think's the best part of? What has been the most fun of this crane operating career?
I'll tell you what I always enjoyed about it.
Yeah.
Was actually I enjoyed the travel. It's hard being away from the wife and kids, sure, but a different place every day. These people always talk about these jobs where you're set up on them for a year or 2 at a time. I never enjoyed that. I used to get bored with it.
You kind of briefly mentioned that with the pile driving.
Right.
You said that, hey, I don't, I had to sit here and watch these pipes for, a couple weeks or whatever. But
yeah. And I'd much rather, the wife used to get so mad at me. I'd come home and tell her all the sites I've seen, where I've been. Well, I've never been there. You should take me. Okay, yeah, we will, babe. But
right.
And I'd take pictures and bring home to show her and stuff.
Yeah.
We've been up in Raton with the 200-ton Libera when I was on it. Seen some of the most beautiful, pristine elk country I ever seen in my life, and seen the elk to go along with them. We used to have, when we go out on that ranch, Vermejo Park Ranch, if there was an elk laying in the middle of the road, we couldn't pull up there and honk and make it move. We had to sit there and wait for that thing to get up and move.
Yeah.
And the people you meet, 90% of the people you meet doing this kind of stuff are all really good people. Can't say enough about them. It's just a good life.
Yeah.
And good way to make a living.
Yeah, it kind of this industry is kind of on the down low, if you want to say, of opportunities in career paths.
Yeah.
No one really, I didn't know about cranes until I got vetted for the position. And you're like, okay, let's check this crane thing out. But yeah, I know what a crane is by definition, but I don't know what this industry is. And you started here at 8 years old, or potentially even younger, in the crane business, in the crane game. And if you're in high school or in college or looking for something different, this crane industry has some opportunity for you. Whether you know cranes or how to drive a truck or not, right?
The union that we have, they do have an apprenticeship school.
Which local union are we talking about?
Local 953.
Shout out to 953, right?
Yeah. I was a member for 28 years, and I went through the apprenticeship school myself. When I was an oiler and stuff. And guy willing to learn, do a little bit of hard work, and actually the hard work part of it is kind of an overstatement. I mean, it's not like you're out there digging a ditch all day long. You know?
Yeah. In the desert.
You know, you got, if you're driving a truck, our units have air conditioners in them. You know,
right.
You get overheated or something, you can get in there, cool off, and same thing in the wintertime. You know,
they got heaters too.
They got heaters. You know?
Yeah, the Volvos, Pete's, cranes all have heaters now.
You know, the cranes. I mean,
this is the time to do it. I mean, technology in the crane. You know, these cranes are very nice, and we're blessed to have an extremely modern fleet.
Oh,
you know, through Scott Wilson and Bob Waryanka and everybody, Robert Matz, who made this fleet possible.
Right.
We have over 100 plus cranes now. Average age is only probably 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
You know, we're always getting new cranes and equipment. Rob's phone's blowing up here, so.
But no, I mean, somebody interested in doing this, great opportunity, you know.
Yeah, and it's not just crane service here in the Southwest or Mark's Crane and Rigging or UCR that we're talking about. Basically, any crane company, any construction company who uses cranes.
Oh yeah, right now I talk to crane people all across the country, and everybody's looking for help. I mean, I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for help. Somebody looking for a job here in Albuquerque, man, we darn sure.
If you have some gumption, are ready to hustle, not afraid of. You said hard work, but we're not digging ditches, but it still takes hard work, moving shackles and everything like that. If you're looking for some sort of opportunity like that, this exists anywhere in the country, really.
Oh, yeah.
Not just here in Albuquerque or the Southwest, rather.
And as far as our rigging department, too, I mean, you know.
You can jack and roll?
You know, jack and roll, that, I don't know how many people know what that is, but I mean, it's a little bit more work, but it's very interesting work as well, you know. I mean, I actually got to do a little of that when I was younger, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I always enjoyed it. And we when I first hired out, well, part of the deal when I drove that truck to through New Mexico was actually going out there to transload a 400-ton transformer from a rail car over onto a big transport truck. And you know, we took the crane out there to load some of the components off of the rail car onto a truck as well.
Right.
But, you know, back then we didn't have these fancy slide systems like we have either. You know.
Now we have fancy Hydroslide HT 500s and LP 400 slide systems with.
Right.
You can skid a 500 ton, which is 1 million pounds. Up to 1 million pounds on this slide system we have. So transformers, vessels.
Yeah.
But that wasn't, that didn't exist in our fleet or in our toolbox or tool belt then.
Oh, no.
So you went to old school.
Yeah, back then we used great big old Hillman rollers that probably weighed 250, 300 pounds apiece.
Yeah, the Hillman roller, they call them roller skates, right? Some people call them roller skates with the Hillman rollers.
Actually, one of the first transformers I ever seen them roll, they used round stock.
Oh, wow.
Like the Egyptians in the logs, you know? And,
they did Egyptian style? Wow, that's crazy.
And, we rolled a transformer like that one time, you know?
I guess that kind of shows how this industry is progressing.
Yeah.
Technology-wise and availability of modern equipment. That's pretty interesting, though.
Yeah.
But Hillman rollers, I think, are still used to this day.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes even in our fleet, you have to roll something and get a power bar to move it with some rollers, and then gantries, of course, which gantries are pretty interesting too.
Yeah, I've never been around them. I don't know that much about them, but darn sure something I'd like to see.
Well, you always see them in the magazines of these gigantic, the Barnharts of the business, doing these crazy rigging projects with these gantries.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Pretty interesting stuff. That's what I always kind of like about this business, Rob, is, we're headed now to somewhere in New Mexico, south of our yard, to document a project, take some pictures, and check it out. Yeah. But there's always something new. You're never really technically seeing the same thing every day.
No, that's what I always loved about it,
Yeah.
Something different all the time,
I don't know, what city are we going to, or where are we going close to?
We're probably about 15 miles south of Tier C.
Oh, okay. Truth or Consequences, famous city for the show, right?
Yeah, that's it.
They said, hey, if you can name, what did they say? They did a whole city search, and whoever named the city after the TV show got some money or something? Or, isn't that how it goes down?
Yeah, I think that was, yeah.
So the city's named after the TV show Truth or Consequences.
Mr. Bob Barker.
The great Bob Barker, right?
That's it.
Oh, man. Well, I guess it's kind of towards the end here, but what's kind of interesting about you, Rob, is your father, Leroy Pulliam, was in the crane business for how long? He always comes and stops in. He just recently retired at the spring age of 70 or something, right?
75.
75 is when he retired.
Yeah.
And he started, did he ever tell you when he started, age-wise?
Oh, no, he didn't.
Maybe you could guess?
I'd say he's probably 27.
So mid-20s?
Mid-20s.
So if you rounded to 25, that's a good 50 years in the business.
Right.
You have pretty good amount in the business too, 28 plus. Well, not 28 consistent in crane service, but
Yeah, I'm actually in the industry right at 35 years.
oh wow, that's pretty impressive. Now you have your son now in the business too,
Right.
Robnet Pulliam Jr.,
That's right.
aka Robbie Jr.,
Yes, sir. He's boiler on our 120-ton Terex.
which we're gonna go see today.
Yep.
Our Terex AC 100-4L,
He's boiling on it. He's boiled on our 550.
right? Our Grove GMK 7550.
Followed it around for what, a year or so?
Yeah, he spent a pretty good amount of time with that, with the hippie.
Fluff.
The hippie,
That's it.
Jeff Brider, working that crane.
Yeah.
Now he's on the Terex AC 100-4L with Howard Johnston.
Won't be long. He'll probably be running one.
Yeah,
He will be running one.
I see him practicing out in the back, on the boom trucks and everything like that. So, this is basically how you're saying you started. You started pulling on the levers, and that's basically how you got to start in this industry. Because people would say, hey, if you need a license to operate the crane and a license to run the trucks, how would you ever get experience?
Yeah.
But it just takes, getting a learner's permit with your CDL Class A, and then once you're rigging and oiling, just in controlled conditions, of course, operating the crane.
Right.
Here's what this lever does. This pedal extends the boom out, right? This.
Yeah.
Here's how you cable down. Here's how you cable up. Here's how you swing.
Growing up with the operators I had, the old guys, they'd tell you this is lever A, and this is lever B. If you don't know what lever A does, then lever B.
That's a good one.
But they, just got to get in and learn it.
Yeah.
Practice. It's not nothing you're going to learn overnight.
Right. This thing takes time.
We've had guys come in and say they're some brilliant crane operator, and you start talking to them about it, and a lot of times just the lingo that they're using, and you can tell if they run a crane or not.
Right. Or how good they potentially may be.
Yeah.
You hear a bunch of people who have a bunch of experience and don't turn out to be the best crane operator, but that's another story for another time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But it darn sure a good trade to get into.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good business for myself and for yourself and your whole family.
Oh yeah.
And then Robnet Pulliam Jr. What's a double junior?
Ain't got one yet.
I know, but what do you call someone who's a junior?
Oh. Yeah.
Is it junior squared or something?
Could be. Oh, and also I got a nephew that's working here.
Who's your nephew?
Shout out to Jeremy Kilgore.
Oh, that's right, Jeremy Kilgore. I had to think about that one for a second.
Yeah.
Jeremy Kilgore has been in the game for a long time. His father, Levi Kilgore, excellent operator. Great guys, worked with us for a long time too.
Yep.
This is a generational game in some instances. And, Neil Moore, down in Sweetwater, his son Chris Moore, he's a generational guy.
Yeah, Bill Murray or
Yep, Bill Murray.
300-ton operator.
Not the famous actor Bill Murray,
no.
right? I always get that all the time. You work with Bill Murray?
But
Yeah, he's a character, that's for sure. But he's not a comedian.
Yeah, his son's working with us now too.
Right? He's working up in Bloomfield as well. Man, I'm trying to think of other. There's probably a few other that I can't think of at the time, right now. But we have a bunch of guys who are generational in this business. I mean, it's just a great business and has a lot of opportunity. You can stop at that Mantum 15-ton, right?
Yep.
Or you can go all the way up to a 200-ton or even larger. Our crane fleet's always expanding, always looking for operators, and it just takes that step one of saying, "Hey, I want to join this thing. I want to rig and oil, learn this machine."
Take a little initiative. I mean, that's one way you learn is you got to get in, get your boots dirty and your gloves dirty.
Yeah. Another pair that I just thought of while we're talking: Bill Hampton and Larry Hampton, brothers.
Yeah.
Those guys, man. We have some of the legends in this business, as I call them, and Rob, I consider you probably one of these legend guys.
Oh, thank you.
What the guys who've been in this industry have seen it from the beginning. From the beginning of the times, and have so much experience, have seen so much, and done so many projects that it's crazy. You could talk to Larry, probably 2 days straight about stories, and he'd still be able to,
Oh, yeah.
Bob Strohacker.
He'd come up on the third day and tell you some more.
Yeah, if you ever ride with Larry through El Paso, he'll give you the history.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. It's pretty interesting to hear his stories, and we'll get him on one of these shows. Everybody, Bob, Levi, even Vance, Strohacker, Kurt, Carl. I mean, our industry and our crane service business, we have a lot of people who are 10 plus years in the game.
Yeah, that's what I didn't go into all that when I was back when I was running crane, but
right.
A lot of the operators that are here today, and actually a couple of our branch managers, Kurt and Carl, actually I somewhat helped train when they were in the field. When I was in the field, they'd hire on as an oiler, and,
right? Or Dominic, right?
Yeah, Dominic, Jeff Brider, he was already an operator, but he came up quick too. He went from running a 25-ton Manitex to a 110-ton LeBaire.
Right. Then ultimately, then to the 240-ton that we talked about. LTM question mark, right?
Yeah. And then to the 550.
Right. Which is, I guess, technically our largest crane by tonnage in our fleet.
Right. But
so there's a lot of potential, really.
Yeah, just shows there is room for advancement. And just get in there and learn it.
Is there anything else you want to tell potential people watching this or listening to this on iTunes or watching us on YouTube? Or
I'm not talked out, I think. I'm kind of a man of few words. I am, Chris.
Yeah, I know. But we got a good hour of talking about the history of how you joined the crane service game, which I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't know the full story. And that's pretty cool. You started at 8 and still have all those pictures and how you progressed to the crane business.
Yeah, like I say, it's a journey, but I mean, it's been a good one.
Yeah.
I love it.
You kind of have this legacy you've put on too. You can tell your son, of course, and eventually your grandson of, I remember the time when we built this, or the Raton story. There's a lot of history there too of what you've done and built throughout the Southwest.
My wife and kids, when the kids were younger and still at home, we'd drive across town and I'd say, "You see that? I put that there. You see that? I set that there."
Yeah.
They was tired of hearing it.
It was cool for the first couple months, right? I still think it's pretty cool. You hear these stories.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's nothing like getting a bunch of old operators together and start reminiscing and stuff. Some of the stories they tell you.
Getting into some of those war stories, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's nothing like it, man.
Maybe one of these days we'll do it. We'll get a round table on a Saturday and get all you guys together, a few guys, and we can BS about the old times, right?
Yeah, you better bring a lot of film for that one.
Yeah. That's going to be a few hours long, right?
Yeah.
Break it up into different segments.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're almost to our project here to see Robbie Jr., Howard, our Terex AC100-4L. We're going to be setting some marsh buggies, building those. Of course, those pictures are on our Facebook and will be on our social and everything like that, so you can check that out. Actually, we'll probably link that up in this video, when this comes live. But anything else you want to say?
I'm good.
All right, I'm good too. So, guys, thanks for watching or listening to us. Episode 4 of the Crane Rental Podcast. Check us out next week when we'll be talking with, I believe Todd will be talking next week more about rigging and everything. Yeah, which is pretty cool too. That the rigging has so much. There's so much into the rigging too.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic.
Yeah,
it's a lot better, if you can see where you can do the demonstrations and stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, doing some of the
really
lamb.
Cool.
And he has all that gantry or that overhead crane system that we can do some different stuff, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's something to look forward to, guys. We'll be showing you that next week. But now we're going to sign off and film this project and keep moving on to something else, right?
Yep.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.